Look, I've been writing these columns, I've been writing these columns in the Jerusalem Post on and off for now almost 25 years. In fact, even before my first child was born, and today he's 25, I've been writing these types of columns. And over the years, that's a lot of columns. A lot of stuff has happened, both in the family, which I write about, but also in the country. And I tell you, I've gotten positive feedback about the columns over the years. It's funny because I'll write, I could write a brilliant analysis on Prime Minister Netanyahu and his relationship with Abu Mazen, and the same day write one of these columns, and the only reaction I'll get will be to the columns. So because of that and the positive feedback, I thought, hey, it'd be a good idea to kind of put them together.
So when they comment more on your columns versus the diplomatic stories you're writing, you ever have the feeling, why am I writing these diplomatic stories if all they care about, all they read about are the columns?
No, because I think people generally like what they can relate to. There are a lot of people who are writing about politics and diplomacy, a lot of people analyzing from every which angle out there, right? Generally, what's interesting, if somebody comes up to me and say they liked the analysis, right, what are they saying? They're not saying they like the way I wrote the analysis. They like it because they agree with it. Right? The columns, I think, are a bit different. I think people like them because, again, they can recognize certain things that they go through inside the columns, and it gives them a kind of a, hey, this happened to me type of moment. So it doesn't bother me that the columns get more reception than the political analysis. I think that's rather natural and to be expected.
You've written, what, 500, 600, 700 columns over the last 30 years. How do you pick the ones that went into this book?
There's a lot of columns, but I picked my favorites. I picked the ones that I thought were the best, the most well-written columns, the ones that reflected a certain part of Israeli society, which I think is important to get out there. One of the things I want to do in the column and also in the book is all we read about Israel is the conflict. That's all we read about. People don't ever think about, well, what it's like to live here. Not in the shadow of terrorism, but just to live on a daily basis. What are the challenges? What are the nice things? What are the annoying things? What it's like raising kids who go into the army. That's the type of stuff I wanted to put in the book to kind of put a human face on life in Israel, not just a political face.
How has writing this column out there changed you over the last 25 years?
That's an interesting question. What it does is it allows you to sit down just for a couple hours and just think about those little mundane things that always happen to you, and think, well, hey, this is kind of interesting. This is a small thing, kind of a small truth that if it happens to me, it happens to a lot of other people. And when you're able to articulate it, I find, first of all, when you're able to sit down and think about it, you don't lose that moment. But also, when you're able to articulate something that you went through that is very commonplace, other people, when they read it, they go, hey, I know what the guy's talking about. That happens to me too. And I think that's a strong connection.
You're writing as an immigrant from Denver, Colorado, looking at things with that immigrant's eye. How does that speak to the Israeli, the native Israeli?
It doesn't. I mean, the book's not meant for the native Israeli. The book is meant for the immigrants. And it could be immigrants here. It is about immigrants here. And the book is very Israeli and it's very Jewish. But there's a certain immigrant experience, I imagine, that is common throughout the world. You come here as an immigrant, and that label and that feeling stays with you throughout. I've been here for 35 years. I still feel like an immigrant, right? I still worry when I open up my mouth in Hebrew. My kids still laugh at my accent. These are things you can't shake. I still look at things differently because of where I came from, because of the landscape of where I came from. And that's something that I think that immigrants can relate to, and that's another reason why I want to try to put into a book.
Taking a look at local finance.